social violence or violence affecting our country. Now, we would like to start off by introducing those at the head table this evening. To my immediate left, we have Mr. Greg Nunes, who wrote the foreword of the book that we are here to pre-launch this evening, and the title of the book, of course, is Like Bushfire, a study on male participation and violence in urban Belize. So Mr. Nunes wrote the foreword to this book, which was published by Cubola, also of Bentonville del Carmen. So Mr. Nunes' immediate left, we have Dr. Herbert Gayle, the straight right? And he is the region's only social violence anthropologist, and he was the lead researcher on this research on urban violence in Belize, and he was joined by a team of local researchers. This all started back in 2008, but when we get into the thick of it, I'll have those at the head table share the context within which this research came about some years ago. And Ms. Nelma Mortis, she was the manager for the research, and then we have Ms. Jamuna Vasquez, who was the assistant manager for this research. Now, I'm just going to set some ground rules before we go into the discussion. And first of all, there's going to be a question and answer segment toward the end of what will be some questions posed by myself to those at the head table, so that you guys, in terms of guiding the discussion at the start, but when we open the question and answer segment, there is a roving mic to the front. We'll ask you to step forward and introduce yourself. In the interest of time, and of course for all those who may want to get in their questions, we are asking you to just keep it to a question, not comments. You may preface your question a little bit, but let's have respect for others who also want to ask questions. And apart from that, to the end, there is a book center where you can actually purchase Like Bushfire Tonight. Of course, this is ahead of tomorrow's formal launch at the Image Factory on North Front Street. So, let's begin by hearing from Dr. Gayle how this all came about. It started in 2008 when he came to attend a workshop that was addressing specifically boys and violence. So, Dr. Gayle, I'm turn it over to you.
All right, let me say good evening.
Good evening.
Let's see, people don't eat at these times in Belize. I thought I was supposed to be your friend, so let me try again. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Oh, that's better. I almost felt this time like I was in church. All right, so I want to take a few minutes to tell a little bit about this journey that we took with this period. And in fact, I want to begin from 1994 when I had just actually left 5 years, 1989, actually my journey from a section in Jamaica called Savannah Lamar, where I grew up, to Kingston in 1989. And by 1994, doing my master's degree, I was asked by Professor Barry Shabans to cover a community doing something called ethnography. And as I was walking down a street, Wildman Street in Kingston, suddenly I saw the street emptying out, and I couldn't make sense of what was happening, because when you come from country and come to town, you don't have town common sense. So I saw the streets emptying out, and I'm like, thank goodness, because guess what? I'm really tired of so many people on the street now. Only to see a Suzuki Vitara crawling up the street very slowly, and then I recognized that there were guns on two sides of the window, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm in the middle of a drive-by shooting. So of course a young man dashed out of the house, grabbed me, threw me over a fence, and put his body on top of mine. And at that point, all you could hear was music on the same fence, just gunshots. You know, somebody with a Chinese AK-47, literally just ripping down everything. And this was in 1994. I remember going back to class and saying, you know, for a young man to do that, there is something wrong with human species. I'm sorry, I ain't joking on no man to save no man's life. And so that is my journey in violence. Because later when I went back to see this young man, I discovered that he had already killed a number of persons. So this was actually a killer saving a life. What a contradiction. And from that point, I've been trying to understand the paradoxes, the ironies, the contradictions among the human species when it comes to violence. Because in other words, some of the most violent people you meet also have a human side that some of us never ever take time to understand. In 2008, when I came, so that is the reason why I headed to the UK to do a PhD in violence and anthropology combined. In 2008, when I came here as a discussant by UNICEF to look at boys on education, and the very same thing came about. In fact, the bulk of the discussion was about the duality of these boys, how they were given all this amount of trouble, but at the same time, they were more vulnerable than the girls around. And this is what a lot of people couldn't understand, and that is, in fact, where I met Nema Mortis, who just sat there going, you know, if only I could help, and was more agitated than everybody else in the entire forum. And we struck up a conversation, and there, of course, the matter of my invitation to come here and work. Of course, you know, you had a hand grenade being thrown on your streets. And it's strange that human beings quite often get awakened by an explosion. I mean, it sounds very sad. I'm just watching what's happening in Turkey. There's an airport hit in Turkey, and it always amazes me that we get into this slumber, we fall asleep, but once there's an explosion, we're back up. And we're trying to see if we can get Belize and the rest of the Caribbean to operate without the explosion. That's in essence what this preoccupation is about. And so, by 2010, we had gone through several meetings here, a think tank, you know, meetings, trainings, and by 2008, by the end of 2008, we were certain that we really and truly had to create a database upon which the next 20 or so years can be built. And this is what this is. It is the data frame upon which we can begin to frame policies. And so, by 2010, we were through. And then since 2010, I have constantly, I've maintained a link with about 30 young men who keep 2 of whom have died. Strange enough, the very young men who are helping me to collect material in a small space. Think about it. A small space of Belize. Out of those 30 young men who been sending me material so I can continue to do the work in Belize and not in Belize. 2 of them actually called one day and not get the young man. I called the following day, not get him. So I'm getting agitated. And then the mother called me back to say, Herbs, you know, when people call me Herbs, it means your family now. You know, Herbs in gone, you know, I mean, what to be? He left the States, no, he's gone. And then the tears started. So this is the kind of relationship I have with this place. And it becomes umbilical after a time, because when you work with somebody for all these missing years that you will see between 2010, when the report is finished, and 2016 when this is published, right? Then you understand that there has to be something between myself and Belize that's going on. And it's this idea that Belize is small enough to be saved. I don't know if you get it. There has to be advantages in being small. People think that the fact that we're small, oh my God, we're going to die, we're so small. And people tell you all the disadvantages, but they forget that when you're small, everybody is called uncle and cousin. And it means, therefore, that you can be very honest with people. You can say, cousin dear, shut up. And you can't do that in a large space. And this is one of the things that drives me to keep coming back here, getting us going. And each time I come here, there is within me a kind of revival for wanting to see this place do better. And all of that, the blood, the sweat, the tears, all of that is in this. And I want to take 90 seconds to talk about the people who actually work on rewriting this, because the transition from a report to a book, I've done this 3 times now, and I'm telling you, it's not fun. Writing over something 5, 6 times is irritating. It's actually like a rash. It's really hard work. And I see my 2 colleagues over there, right? And I want Virginia to just pop her hand up a little bit, right? Virginia Hampton, who's really been the heart of the core of the rewrite of this. Why do we change? Why do we transpose a report to a book? Because reports are quite nerdy. They're not nice to read. You read a 0.5% regression. What the hell does that mean? But you can't put that in a book. In a book, you have to put that in a language in which everybody can read. So we've moved the nerdity out, and what we have now are words that makes more sense to people, and that is what makes a book a book. So I want to say to everybody, I've given you a synopsis of the journey, and I've left out the massive challenge of the financial side of how we've really had to work brutally hard. Imagine me coming to do a research and I'm walking up to people trying to make money. It actually was very hard. Never done it in my life, never will do it again. but that's the journey we took to make sure the report was completed in 2010. And then the other journey to get this to you. And I want to say, before I sit, every single person, the most critical thing for me about Belize is the fact that Belize has more local willpower than I've seen in any of the 8 other countries I have visited in my entire life. I don't think you heard me. So let me say it again. Because this is the problem I have. You don't know when to commend yourself. So let me say it again. I'm saying humbly, I've had the opportunity to visit over 80 countries in this world. And I've never seen another set of people who get up every day and they are completely cantankerous about the fact that we can do better. Yes? And with that kind of spirit, we can build a country. So I want to say that when you get your copy of this book and you read through, you should be reading 2 sets of stuff. The material that's in here and the material that's in here. Thank you.
I would like to invite you who took the time and really the interest to be here tonight. It may be few people compared to our population, but certainly as Dr. Gayle would remind us every single time, it starts with each and every one of you to make a change, to touch one person and then 10, and that is the way that this assistance keeps spiraling. So I want us to give a round of applause to Dr. Gayle, who keeps coming back to Belize. As a matter of fact, he calls Belize his second home, so we want to thank him for his interest in making Belize a better place, not only for us, but for those who are yet to come after us. So, now, before I continue, we do want to recognize Ms. Virginia Hampton, who, along with Ms. Nelma Mortis, of course, are co-authors of the book, and Ms. Montserrat Casademont of Cubola Productions for taking up this project with the researchers in this case. We also want to welcome those who are listening on the internet because this is being streamed live currently. So thank you all, not only those who are present here, but those who are tuning in. Now, I would like to hear a little bit from Ms. Nelma as the manager of the research locally. So tell us a little bit about how difficult, what are the challenges that we all face going through this process. As Dr. Gayle has been pointing out in interviews he's conducted, it's bringing research, something that may not have been as respected or something that may not have been welcomed or sought out in our country. We're seeing a shift toward that more, and I think especially as it relates to violence, this was a huge leap towards that. So, Nelma?
Good night. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
And in this question, what was it like to have planted the seed and see the seed growing to what we now have here? The book, as it's translated from a report to a book. Okay, by profession, I'm an educator, a teacher, educator, and in all my career path, I recognized that there was something wrong, something that I needed to understand in terms of boys and education. And based on that curiosity, and I had two sons, of whom I also had to, as a single mother, had to figure out the situation of boys and how the role they play in their communities and in school most of all. And that really got to me when I transitioned from a primary school into teaching at a high school. The horror stories of what boys confide to me, of what they're going through in their communities, was what really prompted me. A lot of them, dead and gone, they were my students. And if I begin to call names, for example, Andre Trapp, the one that was killed in front of the Supreme Court, he was one of my students. Just an example. The one Perdomo that just got killed last week was one of my students. And so the burden was there for me to discover what really wrong, what I could have seen. I could have projected that we were going down the wrong road. Then, with that in mind, the principal that I had, who was Derek Satchwell, we were discussing the issue and we were saying, well, there are no programs that really cater to boys, not in terms of alternative or NGOs are addressing boys. So then I realized the woman's agenda is pushing, but there is nothing for boys. In any case, when the first grenade was thrown on in the Mayflower area, I was not surprised. Why? Because I told you my students had confided in me of some of the underworld events that they were or had to be a part of, some of them to pay school fees, some of them to have a roof, to live. I actually had boys going to be security guards in the underworld. Really compelling. And so, with that said, the UNICEF had recently had a conference looking at boys and education in the region, and I was a part of that. And after that conference, and the grenade was thrown, almost directly after, that's when I met Dr. Gayle in the conference and I emailed him to say, this is the situation in Belize. Because I knew his background based on just the first initial conversation that we had in the conference, I realized that, and even before he left after that conference, He asked me to give him a tour of the city, and he actually did a mapping. One of the key things I could recall in my head was when he looked at the lamppost, like posts on the street, and he said, "You people actually do that? What that color red is for, and what is that blue?" Now it was almost a time around election, and all the light posts were all colored painting, and he said, He said, "Do you have a gun that is Crips and represent blue, and do you have a gun that is bloods and represent red?" So then I said, "Yes." He said, "That's dangerous what you guys are doing." He said, "If you all don't get conscious, this place will wash in blood." Exact quote word. And so when the first hand grenade was thrown, that's when I contacted him through the NCFC. I had to go through the committee to ask for permission to get him to start. From there, he guided me into saying, "You need to do a think tank." We did the think tank down here through the NCFC, and we got all stakeholders to sit together and we started doing a brainstorming. But to no avail, we still did not understand the phenomenon. And we realized that we needed training. He came and did a couple training with stakeholders, principals, frontline workers. And then when we were doing the training, we said we needed, there's need to do a research to get down into the root cause of the research. Now, how that research came about is another matter, because there was no, and I'm saying this, I am saying it particularly because no organization or there weren't any leadership to be able to manage the research so that the research could go forward. It was a team of people, Jamona, Alinde, Melvin Hewlett, Raymond Messiah, a couple of us who were trained by Dr. Gayle in those frontline, decided that we will begin to solicit funds. Now, Dr. Gayle said to us, "I won't charge you anything, get me my plane ticket and my accommodation." And that's how we began. We started begging and soliciting, and it was bare minimum. Why bare minimum? Because whatever we collected went right back into actually carrying out the research. So if you bring a group of students to collect data, we had to pay for the venue, we had to pay to feed those students, we had to pay to transport them. So nobody from the research, nobody benefited any kind of thing. It was out of passion that research was done. But for me, it was because for the love of Belize, and of course I have a quest for knowledge and to learn, and that's why we proceeded and we moved forward with the research.
So indeed, it's been a very tedious project, but certainly one that is very, very beneficial to our country. But I think most of you here, you haven't actually seen the research, which was close to 400 pages long. Yeah, if you haven't seen the research or read any part of it, I think you would want to know what were some of the major findings of the research. So we take it back to Dr. Gayle. I don't know if you want to take it from there or here again. Yes.
I'll tell you the findings in about 3 minutes. The essence of the findings is, and I want to create a model for you, is that basically countries like Belize that have a history of violence, as in what we call chattel slavery and the whole colonialism, basically we have inherent within us the ability to distrust each other. So it starts from there. And the fact that we distrust each other, and we are poor on top of that, it is easy for us to become segmentary, factional. Let me take my time with that word. Segmental and factional means that even though we are neighbors and we have some amount of connection with each other, we also have a problem with each other, and it's easy for us to strike up a violent competition with each other. So when you have a matter of scarcity of food, which is the most primal basic need, and I've always reminded people not to, especially church people, not to pray for people that God will help them when they are hungry. Give them some food first, then pray. I don't think you heard me.
Tell it.
Yeah? I don't know, a lot of us like to do some empty prayers. Oh God, help him. But it's not happening because he's hungry, yeah? And so that's part of the problem. So when people have extreme scarcity, you know that Belize has been struggling with over 40% of its population below the poverty line still. And when persons already have the DNA frame that you really can't trust anybody, it's easy for them to be drawn into gang formation. Making sense?
Yeah.
But when you have this gang formation, you then have another problem on the other side. You have this problem where there is a weak central political authority. And the weak central political authority is a whole chapter in the book. It's made up of, let's start from your parliament down to your judiciary, down to the police department, and then of course you have the civil society, which is made up of mostly media, church, and CEOs and NGOs and all of these people that really have power. But if you look carefully at Caribbean society, and I'm speaking not just about Belize, but Caribbean society, because Belize is not unique, believe me. We've done the exact same study in Trinidad. And believe me, their problems are exactly the same, except in that because they're the wealthiest society country in the Caribbean, they have a dual Trinidad, the poor section and the rich section. While Belize have the north side, south side, but the distinction in Trinidad is more rigid. That's all the difference. But when you have Caribbean society in which the people on the ground, I'm going to say this without apology, are more active than the people off the ground, you have a problem. You get used to this, so I leave it there. So you have a weak central political authority. You have people creating their own space from the fringes, going into morasses, into swamps, and building their houses among the mosquitoes, without anybody saying to them that, you know, that is a possible health hazard. You know, when people are so much on their own, we're talking about a weak central political authority that is the result of having been colonized. Because there's no country in the world that was colonized with a strong central political authority. And so the problem is that Belize and the rest of the Caribbean is going through what we call socio-political transition. We're learning bit by bit. Every 10 years we take one more step to owning ourselves. Let me take my time. We're in a transition in learning how to own ourselves. And this is what is causing the violence. So you have all of that. You have young people who have no frame of identity. Okay? Because if you look at young people in Southside and just listen to them speak about going over to the north and how much they distrust just the idea of going over to the north, you understand the depth of the vision within Belize. In fact, I'm intrigued by the fact that people from the north side found it easier to cross into the south because they found it romantic. You know where I went? I was over the south side, you know? You know, like, wow, rite of passage. Man, a bad man, because man went down south. So it's intriguing. When you have all of this, what happens is just a fragmented society in which young people are left on their own. Now, if you're left on your own and you're hungry, what do? You become a primal animal, isn't it? You fight for a turn, you fight for the little scraps that are around, and you make sure that even if you don't have family, because remember that chattel slavery always destroys family. Even if you don't have family, you have You have your brethren. Yes? And having a brethren which is more important to you than your family means that when your brethren say some fussy over there, so attack you, you have to go attack the fussy. These are real terms. This is what people call people. By the way, fussy is actually a word that means a sword.
Yeah.
When you describe, and if you listen carefully to my friends from areas like Rhodesia and other areas in Africa that has had serious genocide, where they call people sword and cockroach, you recognize that it's the exact same thing we're doing. We're committing social suicide, and that's the finding, that's the core finding of the book. That if we don't begin to provide these young people with a sense of space, cognitive space, emotional space, real space, if you don't make them begin to own something in Belize, if you don't let them wake up with a sense of hope, that the direction we're going to go is irrespective of all the treatments we are carrying out, because one of the critical and most critical in fact finding of the study is the fact that we treat the symptoms of all the problems in Belize. So the kids are angry. Why are they angry? No, we want to treat the anger. So they are violent. So why are they violent? No, we need to police them. We need more police per capita. And you're really shocked to know that Belize actually have more police per capita than anywhere else I've seen for quite a while. And I'm certain that some of you are sitting down there recently, we need more police. I guess one day I'm gonna come to Belize and we are all police. So when I have a meeting, I say, all right, come on, police officers. But the issue is that we have to stop treating the symptoms and begin to look at the root. The education system that needs to be redesigned. The idea of establishing a welfare service and an umbrella, a social umbrella that says every single human being deserves at least to be fed. And whatever it takes, we're going to have to get there before we begin to fix this thing, where everybody begins to understand that Belize is one of the most valuable spaces on earth, that the human and physical resources you have outweigh many of your neighbors, even though you don't know. And so that is in essence the core of what we form. And that is why we have a chapter closing that says, there is a way forward. A revolution, changing stuff, forgetting the symptoms. Yes? I have watched young men who are gunmen. Young men who kill 3-4 persons, and when we adopt them, they forget where they left their gun. Because we often say to people, guns don't kill people, it's people use guns and kill people. So it doesn't matter who you are, what you are. If I begin to mentor you, if I take you as my brother, as my child, and begin to work with you, if I become your neighbor, it means therefore you have a hope. So I leave you with this, that forget about loving your neighbor as yourself. Love yourself so much that if you love your neighbor half as much, you'll be safe.
I don't think he should have sat down because we're going to call him right back. We would want to know what has happened since the research was completed in early 2010. And as Dr. Gayle was mentioning, he's been back in Jamaica. I believe he's been to Belize a couple of times since, maybe more, I'm not certain. But he certainly has kept up with everything that has happened. And so we want to know what exactly has transpired since then. Have we moved forward at all? And there's a quote that I wanted to mention from the introduction that Dr. Hampton made and wrote. And it's, children lead lives we should be ashamed of. That's happening right here in Belize. And in the acknowledgement section, you have words like children are basically playing the game of war when they should be playing other games. So with that, we turn over to Dr. Gayle once more, so where we have come.
All right, so answer the question quickly. What have I seen different now that I'm here in 2016 compared to 2010 or 2008 when we started? And I want to begin by saying I have seen a lot. There have been tremendous changes since we started this journey. Some of it harrowing and frightening, and the rest of it really, really good. But I want to leave the horrors behind, and I want to say that today I went to see, in fact, let me step back a little bit. Upon my second business trip here, because I came to Belize twice before in the 1990s, but upon my second business trip here, there was a retreat. One of my dilemma, one of the stuff that really, really got to me was this matter of this question: where is the department for the youth? I couldn't find it, and every time I come, I really get really quarrelsome about it, right? You know, and then people were crazy enough to call me to lead a retreat of the various youth groups to speak about a unified, enforceable, and powerful youth department for the government. So you know we had CYDP, we had YFF, we had all kinds of stuff that rhymes. And I find a lot of stuff about there is very poetic. They always rhyme, there's always a rhythm and rhyme to it, but they don't work. So, I mean, when I returned this time and I got a tour of, it's now called the Department of Youth Services, I was really impressed that finally, the word youth is in the ministry. I mean, listen, these things are important. People may think that these things are titular and they're just nominal. Believe me, it's important. In fact, I remember a young man saying to me in England that I am not British. But in 2006, when the word Black Britain was added to the Oxford Dictionary, notice 10 years ago, the word Black Britain was put in the dictionary. He took up a dictionary and he said to me, look at this, Black Britain, I am British. So don't take these things lightly. So we now have a department. And if we have a department now, it means therefore we can begin the war of making this department powerful and to begin bit by bit to pull in the other youth departments and youth units and to really have a place where youth can go that they own. Alright? The second thing I remember making a big fuss about when I just came here is, where's your national football field? Where is it? And over the years, I noticed you built one. So, you understand what I'm saying? Look, this is just the other day. You basically all the things I asked for, and I was asking people, where can I locate them around their heads? When I ask now, they say, yeah, it's around. So in other words, it's not going to happen overnight. But the biggest achievement for me is the fact that when we came here, you have statistics that you came up with when you were on the toilet seat. I kid you not. So you get a gut feeling. Gut feeling is about the toilet. Gut feeling has nothing to do with reality. Now people have gut feelings that I think we should resume hanging. I think if we hang them, then they will live. Have you ever heard this thing before? No, I've heard some crazy stuff, you know. I think we should resume hanging. What do you think? Yeah, man. What is it? Yeah, man. And then, men are fascinating. Women don't do this, right? You could never have a gut feeling and go to women and say, hey, once, I think we should resume hanging. She shouldn't go, and why? You go, oh, God, that's why I don't have to go. To the men, I say, I think I should resume, yeah, man. But, so I've noticed that there's a shift away from the toilet behavior. That's what I call it. Men having gut feelings that something should be done. Why? Because someone tell them cousin. Do you know that's how policies are formed in small countries? Huh? Something on to your cousin and you say, yeah man, I think we should do it. And there's a Caribbean thing again that's really irritating. All of these children are fatherless. Why? Because my neighbor is fatherless. You don't know that's how we do things? Your neighbor becomes everybody in their needs. So what I've recognized that there's a shift away from that. to reliance on, and it's very slow, and it's not going to happen overnight. Right? I always look right below an article that speaks about research in Belize. And I used to count 17, I'm telling you, I'm very nerdy. The first time I looked, 71% of people said research of idiots. 71% of people said it's a waste of time, it's a waste of money. Me already know what happened about it. Right? 71% of people had something completely negative about research. And how the people then come to Belize and then just take me the money, send them do research, and run down back to the yard at Jamaica. A whole lot of stories. When I checked again later, a few years later, there were persons defending research. And the dialogue started online on social media. I watched social media. And now I'm seeing a splinter, just a sprinkling of persons who are adamant that I will not go with the generation that says we must have research-informed policy. And to me, if we get to this point where we begin to see the value of investing in wanting to know in a scientific manner, we're on our way to development.
I know one of the key things the book has done and getting him back here because we are launching the book is that it gives us an opportunity to do just post an anecdote of what is happening out there as it relates to programs and violence. And so the book itself gives us that opportunity to reassess where we are at this point. And like he was saying this morning with the Department of Youth Services, we were sort of amazed of some of the things that we did not know about. And so it gives us the opportunity to say the Youth Services Department, it's time that we do some social marketing. So the book, even though it's written and the report was completed 5 years ago, and the book is here now, it gives us that great opportunity to reassess and do a mapping of where we are and what we're doing.
All right. You can give them a round of applause, please. All right, and with that, we're going to open the discussion with our question and answer segment. So those of you who have burning questions, I'm sure, can step to the front. The mic is right beside Mrs. Catabemon. Let's hold that up for her. All right. All right. Don't rush all at once.
Good night. Oftentimes, and I appreciate the information here, one of the questions I have is, when people sit down to do research, and they sit with stakeholders, what I have found is oftentimes the people who are the stakeholders are not people from communities who community members trust and have been on the ground for years. They're oftentimes not lectured, they're not formally educated, and so they're oftentimes not included in conversations that shape policies that would impact the majority of our lives as roots people. And so I want to know if it was any different in this case, 1A and 1B. I am pleased that it is led by a black brother from the Caribbean. It is oftentimes still post-colonial history. We still get a lot of European people who honestly are not in touch with our reality, our culture, and our way of life. And that makes a difference for the people when they see who the people are, depending on what the research is. But especially in this particular conversation, male violence in male participation in Belize when it comes to violence. So those two questions I would like answered. One, were roots people a part of consistently the stakeholder conversation? And 2B, what is your take on having, in your case, a black brother, formally trained and roots correlate to it? I thought that made a big difference, but did you think that had an impact in the research?
All right.
the first thing is that the research design is very different. It's in fact, it's a method called integrated methodology, which came out of Swansea City University. In fact, it was just fortuitous that I was part of the guinea pig of integrated methods, which is now flooding the United States in a different name called mixed methods. But integrated methods, which is where the root of it is, from Swansea, is basically about doing research, building on a research that was earlier called PLA, as in participatory learning and action. So integrated methods is really about working with people. The number one stakeholder would have been the gang members and young men and so forth on the streets, first of all. And if you look at, we use a method called peer, which is basically to ask young people to sit down with other young people and have a reason about what's happening, about what policies they want to see changed in Belize and so forth. So basically, when you read the report, when you read the book, you're listening to the voices of these young people. So it is very grassroots up, or what we call bottom-up approach, rather than listening to stakeholders and so forth, who were more part of the problem than the solution as far as the core stakeholders and the young people are concerned. What's important, the fact that I'm Caribbean and so forth. Yes, but I think there's also a part of it that I'm naturally an idiot, so I think people find it very easy to relate to me. Professionally, and that's the truth, I've always grown up with the attitude that I don't know something, so let me sit down and learn. All right? I've never, if you got the way I do, you understand that I've always found it impossible to impose myself on a person. So I will come, I'm always unassuming. That's just part of my problem and my advantage, because you know the advantage or the disadvantage. Where I will sit among people and they ask me, you know, we're looking for Dr. Gayle, and I will even join the drama and direct them to find Dr. Gayle, and even walk with them and help them to find Dr. Gayle. Because I love the arms out, I would say, joining on the streets. Right? But that is who I am. I like to have fun with people, I like to bounce around with people, and I will never ever impose myself and make myself look better than anybody. So as a result, I will be like on a public transportation and people come and see me and say, you look like somebody I can talk to and tell about all their troubles. You know, how much man them paying a night, all kinds of details that all God will want to know. So I think that is what has been most important for me in terms of working with anybody at all. Because I've worked with gangs all over the world. I've actually studied now 21 major gangs that you read about. I've lived with them, I've spent time with them, go on the road and say, well, come, we're out with gal. I say, yeah man, gal is it, because that's me. And I think that is the approach I've always reminded people that when you want to help people, first of all, you have to appreciate what is that like for them. I think that's what's really important.
I would like to add to that, Yaya, in that that was one of the most, the methodology that we used was one of the most frustrating for me, because I've done research before. It was basically quantitative, where you do a survey and you just collect data. But we were trained with some new approaches, and the one that we were training was the pair, training students to interview their own pairs. And after we were finished with that, we did an animated life history that really focused extracting the data from young little ones from 6 to about 12. When we were finished with that and we got our finding, like Dr. Gayle couldn't finish, and the research team could tell you, we up day and night, and literally could tell you that she reminded him of it the other night, that he had asked all night, morning, see us. But he would say, this is not sufficient. We need to know here what these children are telling us. We need to add this other approach, this other methodology. We need to go and interview the police. And then we need to go and interview the teachers based on what the children were telling us. So one of the strengths of the research. I know a lot of people out there that can't appreciate research because it's not a part of our core being. Would say, no, we're going to tell we don't know what we never know. All right, we don't even know it. But actually, we went and we used a scientific process to validate what you all knew. So that was one of the key strengths of the research, that we did a lot of triangulation until Dr. Gayle frustrated me personally. Not nobody ever did, but we want to add another piece or another method.
In fact, I want to say to persons that anyhow somebody does a research and present data that they didn't know is lying and telling. I'm tired of telling people this. Research is not going to come and find something that you don't know. Don't you live here?
Right.
So I'm always amazed when people meet me on the road and say, why you know ballet, you know, find nothing what we never know. I said, well, thank you, boom, I'm perfect man. Guess what? It means that we are correct. And they go, what do you mean? Because of course they came with something negative. And part of what I've always said to people is like, if somebody comes negative, spin it back to positive, because the other side of negative is positive. The essence of research is something called feedback. The feedback process in research is, have I found what you know? If you say no to me, then I'm going to have to sit down with you to find out why or you didn't know that. The only difference is that I must know it in a way in which we can now make policies, we can now make change, which is different from the way you knew it, because the way you knew it was, and I'm going to use two words, you knew it in what is called a level called the ontology, but we also must know it in a way that's called the episteme, because it's the episteme that's going to be the explanation that we can actually use to make things better. All right?
Yeah, my question is simple. One quick question. I was a teacher in primary school for about 4 years, and one of the things that I noticed, I know I read the research, one of the things I noticed, I had read the research in 2010, and I know you talked a lot about young men, especially those that grew up without parents. You talked about education system, I think you referred to it as a basket, putting water in baskets and things like that. One of the things I observed while I was still teaching primary school is the treatment of boys. And I don't know if this is kosher, or this is something that's popular said, but I always recall several students, but one of them I usually talk to my wife about is a young man, I won't give his name. But while I'm teaching in primary school, so I always hear the female teachers, and I'm sorry to say, refer to him as his bad, rude, whatever. And eventually I met this little boy, he was in standard 2 at the time, and I didn't see a bad boy, I saw a young man who was energetic, who was lively. We were doing sports day preparations, and he's knocking on the wall, doing rhythm because they do the chants for the sports day song. I walk over to him, and you can see him looking at him like he's waiting, like scared, like he's expecting me to scold him for doing that. And I said, no, I don't want to scold you, you're rhythm day off. I try showing on me. No, I never taught this child officially, only through sports day interaction. But later on, you can't get rid of him. You know, he's always there. Years later, I leave teaching, I'm now in journalism, he meets me in the bank, runs up and actually comes and hugs and says, I was the best teacher he's ever met. And I always tell people I've never met him. I never taught him, sorry. And so my question then, sorry for prefacing that now, is when you talk about the education system, do we need to fundamentally change the way we treat boys being boys in the education system?
I'm going to ask my colleague to respond to his question. All right. Here's what is happening. If I should count all the pennies that I could charge around the world to teach how to teach boys, I'll be rich. Unfortunately, I have a bad habit. If I see people desperate enough, I will do it for free. And the problem I have is that I have not yet met a single school that I've gone through my entire travels that understand boys. I know it may come as a shock to you, but I've never, not even in Europe. There's something fundamentally wrong with education across the world. I know, you must say these things, but I'm going to tell you. People actually think that boys and girls are the same, and people have actually written books to show how similar they are. Don't know how you can take a Mercedes Benz and show that it's similar to an F-154. People do that. So part of the problem, I remember, in fact, I was in London for about 4 weeks, and I was called by my brother to say that they are going to expel your nephew. Now my nephew is 6'3", weighs close to 200 pounds, and the teacher was teaching him was 5'2". And then, so they already see the problem. And then Jamaicans have a way of saying hush, but in England hush means shut your mouth. So the boys were making a lot of noise, and he turned to the teacher. When the teacher, he said hush to the boys, and then turned, which is a British hush, and then turned to the teacher and said, hush your ear, miss. And she wrote down that he needs to be expelled because he's rude, and she wrote a whole long list of stuff. So I went to see her and I said to her, hush. As soon as she opened her mouth, I said, hush. And she's like, you just put us here. I said, and I said, no, I'm trying to teach you the difference. Then I put my hand on her shoulder and I said, hush, my dear. Quite often the communication between teachers and boys is a nightmare. The boys are aggressive, they have 12 different aggressive hormones which females don't have. By the time they get to 12, they literally smell. Come on, let's be honest, boys smell. From the toes up, their arms are green. We use these words to describe the boys, come on. And they look like they need to be beaten. Come on, let's be honest. They walk in there, they make so much noise and they carry on so much, while the girls feel like a saint. I can tell you this because for those of you who don't know, I'm actually a trained teacher. I went to teachers college. And there's nothing that is more irritating than the fact that teachers are always quick to beat the boys. Even in countries where it is illegal to flog students, you will see teachers walking towards the boys to hit them because they look so big. But then when you spread a male brain and a female brain out in front of a teacher, and we go to the scan area of emotions, I've seen teachers begin to cry because the girl has 20 other different emotional sites, and all they have to do is teach a girl how to manage her emotions. Because you only have too many things, it's difficult to manage it. That's the only reason why women seem emotional, because they have too much. When you turn to the boys, the male brain, and you see 2 or 3 sides of emotion, and they're all on one side, which is why we can't cry and change a nut on a car. Because once a male starts to cry, his hands get weak because right brain, left brain, and we don't do the switch very well. And I've discovered that it is ignorance. It is not that teachers want to get up on boys. They simply don't understand boys. And then here's a dilemma. The majority of our teachers are women. And then also not very big women. For some reason, research has actually shown that the average female is shorter than the average female teacher is shorter than the average female. For some reason, the profession attracts very small women. We don't know why. It's one of the questions in the research. We don't know why. Why the little cute ones become teacher, I don't know. And then they're going to teach these big ugly boys. So there are problems. But it has to be education, my brother. We're going to have to take time out to reconstruct, not just teaching, not just teaching curriculum and the methods of teaching, but also train teachers on how to teach boys. Because that is the problem. Even something as simple as putting boys away from the chalkboard so they can see the chalkboard. Because boys, and in fact, none of you here, all of you men here know that. When you see a nice girl on the road, you have to turn your head to look at the girl. When your partner sees what we call a fetching man, they just simply turn the eyes to the peripheral corner and see the man without turning the head. And that's biological. And therefore the men are always guilty. The women are not guilty because biology says they are better off. So they're different, yeah?
Alright, are there any more questions? Excellent questions, actually.
You mentioned in your book that boys are more vulnerable. So then how do you connect what you have found out with the fact that we don't have a male agenda, we have a woman's agenda. And that's where all the money is. So connect the dots for me, explain to me what, I agree. I've always, that's my fight with people. But what are we missing?
There's a very strange thing about the Caribbean. If we've been through slavery and if women alone were allowed to go to Sunday markets, it meant that women came out of slavery in the Caribbean with money and men came out broke. I'm going to say it again because a lot of my family's friends didn't get this part of their training. They think that men came out of slavery with a check that's black and they can write whatever they want on it and go to the supermarket. But the point is that if you take the average slave during slavery, women were the ones who had genuine power. They were inside the house. They were expert poisoners. Let me go again. There is a book called In Misery Slavery. I want you to read how women were able to expertly grind glass bottles and give to the planters to feed. And say to them, just die slowly. So you see, quite often chauvinism has a backfire. We're so chauvinist and arrogant that we write about how men conquered and how the Jamaicans and other slaves, shut down the plantations and so on. And we ignore the woman who was inside, grinding the bottom and feeding the planters. I don't need to have any great imagination to think of how painful a death if you are drinking glass bottle every morning for breakfast. That has to be more brutal than simply having a act off. But we've written our history as his story. And because we've written history as his story, the historiography gets complicated and is wrong. We have not established that men and women have been partners. And that is why today, when the most graphic thing that happened to us in all research we've done was in Trinidad. When we asked the question, who's the head of the household? And the woman said, the idiot. And we went, okay then, how can you be the idiot and be head of the household at the same time? She said, well, the society say he must be the head of the household. I don't see what purpose it serves. He's not even good at night. So he's the head of the household. And so, because of that, we came up with a new design in doing research on power within the family. We leave the lying parents, the lying and confused parents, and we begin to interview just the young people themselves to say, Here's an index of 10 things. Who made decision on these 10 things? And what we found, and I'm going to give you the data. In Jamaica, 51% of all decisions in the home, yes, are made by women exclusively, compared to 26% made by men exclusively. In Trinidad, 45%, in Belize, 44%. So in other words, I have not yet met a Caribbean country in which men have genuine power in their household. Yet they are supposed to be the head of the household because the Bible says so. And so that is the contradiction. Now, if you tell somebody constantly that they are weak and that they are the lesser of the two sexes, I will never ever blame them for fooling you that they are. Because you told them so. When you come in there and tell me that you're short, the next time I'm going to see you at 6 feet 1.5 inches tall, I'm going to say, big up yourself tall man, you're shorter than I am. And this has been the kind of nonsense that we've been living with in the Caribbean. And given the fact that the World Bank and all the other United Nations bodies now have a section called gender that is completely and well greased and funded, I have never ever said to our women not to milk it. Women are suffering. Even if you're not, suffer hard. Because there is none around and you're suffering. But the reality is that some of us have to begin to be honest about this. That if a woman have an MA and don't have an MAN, there is still a problem.
Thank you very much. I was a little late, so I may have missed some of it. But I want to speak through the prism of a planner. As planners, our role is to bring about healthy, sustainable, inclusive communities. And one of the areas that we always feel or think that is discounted in terms of addressing issues of how we providing solutions, that is as to how we reduce crime, is the whole issue of how we design our urban spaces. That is totally lacking. We place no emphasis on the importance of how we socialize as a community and how that helps to build community spirit and inclusiveness. So I wanted to ask your insights on that in terms of the way forward. Because if we are to look at the way forward in terms of how we address not only crime, because as you quite rightly said, it's only the manifestation of a problem. Going to the root cause of the problem, it has multiple dimensions and it's complex, yes. But how we design our space is very integral to how we socialize and how one can say you can design out crime. So I want to hear your insights on that. I want to make one comment also is that one of the things I've always pointed out to the Belize City Council, and I do it publicly, is that I have a fundamental problem when I see us spending these large amounts of monies on what I call these one-shot institutions. Specifically, I remember when the BTL park was being developed, I said, great idea, I don't have a problem with it. But if we had used half of that money to do a network of smaller community parks, where communities can go out and play and socialize and congregate. Because if I look at somewhere where I want to go in the evening or on the weekends and I don't have to walk a mile away, how can we expect people like say from Port Loyola or Collect or Yarborough to have to walk to socialize all the way over to a BTL park? What happened to the little basketball courts and so on and so forth? And so to my mind, like I said, the whole issue of how we organize our space, I believe is very integral to addressing issues of crime reduction, so I wanted to hear your insights on that.
Town planning requires expertise, and quite often politicians and the people around us think that all of us can just jump up and do it. The British had a rude awakening in Africa in the 19th century, in which they were going in the name of building and giving back and helping. And this is a joke I got from my British colleagues when I studied in England. They were building houses. They went to this community community, I think this was in Nairobi or somewhere there. They went into this area and they noticed that all the houses were built on stilts. So they're very high up and that goats live underneath them. And they thought, how uncivilized. We're going to build nice brick houses for these natives. And of course what they did was to build underground, and the people kept on saying, don't do that. And they built a pilot house. You know, people like to build pilot houses. And after they built the pilot houses, the natives said to them, you go live in it. Because we are not going in no pilot house. So of course the two British went to live in the house, and within 2 weeks they felt their skins itching. And one of them was scratching, and a whole bag of chicken, looking like little spiders, came out of their skin. What they didn't recognize was that the goat urine underneath the house kills the chickens. So every house has to be built with goats, and the goats must stay underneath because there was this is an area with a lot of chicken. And that chicken will actually go into your bodies and build that nest inside your body, on your skin. So there are British people walking around with big bumps on their skin, and when they scratch, a whole bag of spiders with insects will crawl out. And of course, the lesson is, if you are going to build something for me, ask me not. But there's a kind of disrespect and disconnect between policymakers and the people on the ground. Right? And one of the things you're pointing out is how we manage space. I've gone to many different countries and I've seen people set up big centers. Why do you want to build a big center? Because you see, when you're taking pictures, it looks big. I've literally heard politicians say the big one look better for the election than to build 5 of them when guess what? You are only going to see one small one. Because nobody's going to see the 5 small ones. But the thing is that we have to begin to agitate to say to people that we have to become a part of the stakeholders in the construction of our towns. Because imagine, and I don't want to depress you, but you actually live on a delta. It's not a little scary. But somebody came with a brilliant idea to build your city on a delta and then hope that the rain don't fall to heaven. But this is the way to do development. Trust me, there are parts of Kingston quite similar, so don't feel lonely in depression. Right? But that's the way people do things. They come with gut feelings, rather than head to the toilet, they head to Parliament. And then they do these things and you commend them. And so one of the things I always have to say to people is become more critical, become more of a participator in decision making. Hear something on the television or on radio that we are going to make it this way. And stop on the side of the road with a placard, if you call them 2 times and you don't hear them, that says we do not want it. Right? And to me, I've seen people do this in other countries and that's worked. So that is my suggestion. The big advantage you have in Belize is that everybody here has a cousin someplace who has power. Even if you yourself don't have power. And what I've said to people here is use your family and friend connection. That is the essence of being small. Everybody has a cousin. And point out to them and ask the idea and have them begin the discussion about how to do this level. Yes?
So now questions can step forward. Reverend Anthony.
I have a simple question, Dr. Gayle. I'm an Anglican priest, and I'm also an educator, and I take your point on empty prayers. So we don't do empty prayers. This morning I heard you on the radio, and I was literally glued to the television. You had me mesmerized, and I said I have to come over here tonight. But my simple question is the title of the book. Like what is it? Like Bushfire. How did you come about that title? Can you tell us? Because, you know, I know about California bushfires. And California bushfires don't stop burning. They keep on and on and on. But I know about Belize bushfires. They stop on their own. It's very easy to extinguish, unlike the ones in California. So that's my point. How did you come about the title, like bushfires?
We're going to hand over the mic to Dr. Hampton, okay.
Sorry. Because yes. Well, yeah. Well, always the title of the book, I think, is very telling, very important. So it's always a moment of inspiration. And this time it was with Virginia. We were making a list of titles, right? And Virginia came up with, like bushfire? Yes. So I said, perfect. I think with bushfires expand very quickly, and it takes a lot of people to put them out. So I thought, and I have a farm, I've been through bushfires, I know how difficult it is, and they actually, at one point you can, fight them, but it really takes a big, big effort. So that's why I put the title.
Let me just add that floods are actually bushfires. Most I use a metaphor rather than a simile. They say they're lightning fires instead. They are bushfires because I can assure you, the easiest way to end a flood is to get rid of one of the warring parties. Just relocate them. The Brits are very good at this. Believe me, if you go back to the 1980s in London, you'll see where the Brits simply take one more community that is fighting another community and move them 50, 60 miles away. Because people know that if two sets of people start fighting, they create something called belly. Belly means the need for revenge. And it goes on and on and on and on and on. The University of the West Indies Open Campus is located beside a community called Augustown. And we found a young man in Augustown who said he was now the third generation of persons who need to kill the people who live down the road. Third generation. He said to me, I'm the third generation. It's from the 1960s we've been killing them and they've been killing us. And I have actually met young men who have actually been killing, their family has been killing the other family from 4 generations. So the idea, when I saw the title Bushfire, I went, yes. Because nothing else to me could have captured the idea of the fact that if you leave a bushfire, ask my Canadian friends about what a bushfire can do. If you leave a bushfire to just continue, it's going to always have oxygen as well, which is needed. The bush is there's always bush. So if we switch back, there are always going to be young men, there's always going to be hunger. If you maintain the same conditions, bushfires don't really burn themselves out. In fact, by the time they do, especially if you're in a country where you have fleets and other stuff that can cause them, by the time they do, there's nothing left, no energy left to repair. So the title is a subtle warning that says we don't all come together and begin to take up a piece of bush. Notice, we're not going to fight bush by bush. Don't people recognize that, but that's the practice where I'm from. I'm from the countryside. Where there's a bushfire, we break a piece of bush and we chase the bushfire with bush. Which means we ourselves are the ones who have to be involved in getting this thing done.
You have more questions? A quick question? Sure, of course.
Sorry, I don't have to go, so I just don't want your answer for this. I know in your research, I have a lot hunger have to do with single mothers and who up in a south side. But I myself are involved a lot with hunger in the ghetto. I find out that no, a lot of the gang get bigger because some of the guys in are just for fame. They're not hungry. They eat, drinking more than the rest, but when you hang out and you don't say you're yelling top boy, last night I nearly shut down on me or bust down on me. And to me, it showed me that this my thing of Belize that just was just concrete nearer. But a lesser, I think that more like that for the film and go then you call us up the shut down the next one and thing and this is why I say it happened at the city and that I part of confuse me, you understand? Because language the four part of it, there's a lot of you cannot need to get going, but then get it go, then get it the auto, get it film and the big up. You open the newspaper headline and then from page you check out the news and say no told us this and that and you know that's my question.
Very good question and observation. The word food in the context in which we use it does not only mean food in your belly. It means opportunity structures, but I hate to use big words and say to you it's the opportunities. But I want to also recognize a gang language. When you kill somebody in a gang, you're also eating food. If you realize that. Person said to me, boy, you know, I have to eat about their food now. And I said, no man, you're eating food. Because the word food means not just lack of nutrients, yes, but it also means lack of education, lack of hope. It means basically a scarcity of resources. Now here's the problem. Remember to take Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Once you become a gang member, and I want to take my time on this because I have met a lot of young people who, before they become a gang member, nobody gave them anything. Take your time and observe this. I want to quote a young man because this one is very painful. A young man said to me, before I became a gang member, I used to walk past that shop is right there, so I beg them every morning. And the little ballet inside, the one there and said, go on there, and I go to school hungry. And the day I became a gang member, and passed with the colors and looked on him bad, he said, come here, young man, and gave me a job to be the informal security for the shop. Please understand this. If we teach these young people that there is value in becoming a gang member, then they are going to value this as they have this now, because this is no property. Every human being must have property. And if one property is to become a gang member, then that becomes extremely valuable. The other big point I want to make to show that you're very correct, and that is actually the essence of what we're saying. And I think, as I said earlier, you got the food part a little bit out, and I'm happy you asked. Is the matter of identity. Remember that if I live in an area called X, I don't want to call people's community names, but if I live in a community called X, and somebody grabbed me down the street and beat me up because I live in X, I am going to feel that it is better off for me to be an active X rather than a passive X. So X becomes a part of my identity, what we call turf identity. And if a person who lives on the, let me use the north side, south side. If a person who lives on the north side have a car, have girls, have parents, have property, have even inheritance, and all I have is a gang, I have to manipulate and make my gang status work for me. And then the interesting thing, my brother, that a lot of us do not know, women are wired. Whether or not women like it, yes or no, it's just the way you're made. It's just the way nature created women. Women are wired to seek the male that has the greatest potential to protect her. And that is why women are attracted to bad men. Take it as it is, as a scientific fact. I have gone to dance with gunmen as an experiment and walk over to a girl and speak to her in clean, clear English. And she said, what a nerdy. And the young man walked over with his gun, exposed, pull up his shirt. And she jumped out and started to whine. And I didn't get no whine. You understand? And I wanted to whine back. You understand what I'm saying? So in other words, the point about this is that a lot of stuff that we see as being serious, as in horrible and violent are actually attractive in another way. And once, and this is the reason why earlier I said that we found that a number of the kids from the north side go down to the south side to validate their manhood, remember? Right? So if you're coming to my space to validate your manhood, it is also saying to me that as a bad man, I am also a big man. And therefore, part of what we're talking about in this book is redefinition of masculinity. Is providing young people with options. Because if you have 15, 20 options, you don't have to only choose the one that's about masculinity and violence. Yeah? Alright, my brother?
Alright, I think there was one more question lined up. We're only going to play one more after that because it's already it's after 8.
Good night, everyone. Dr. Gayle and Dr. Virginia, congratulations on a good job. Questions. One, the cover, the picture that was selected for the cover seems more like a civil unrest as opposed to a gang situation or a street violence situation. So I was curious about that, the choice of picture for the cover, the link to a civil, looks like a roadblock there, if that's deliberate. And second, I have this curiosity. I don't know if your study answered this or if this is a part of what is the new way or if it's maybe mine just noticing what in recent news reports, I hear a lot of reports that this person was known to the other person. One person killed by someone who was known to him. And I don't know if that's a new phenomenon or if it's something I'm just not noticing, but a while back it was like, it seemed like they were strangers or it was someone that just passed by or someone that was unknown. But recently I've been hearing more and more of one person being killed by another person that was known to him. And I just wanted a little comment on that in terms of how our males are relating to each other. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to ask the cover of the book. Right, but I'm going to ask my colleagues to speak about the cover of the book. And I'm going to ask Jamuna to speak about the cover of the book. And then Greg and I are going to be talking about other matter.
I don't think there was, I think it was not so much whether it was a civil unrest or not, but I think the idea was because it was like the fire, we are looking at fire in the background, and the main people in the research that we want to address and we want to look at meeting their needs voice. And as you can see, that young man is, is the main audience that we want to help, right? So I don't think it was, so there wasn't, right? And then I think you were talking about also looking at benchmarks for civil war and, to a certain degree, yes, unrest. If we don't address our problem, we will get to a place where it will become more serious and actually it's almost there, So we're trying to be optimistic, but I think that that was our thinking, and maybe Montserrat could also.
I like the idea that it can have different readings, but basically it was, the book was a novel and it was almost can take months, sometimes years. And we had no cover, so we tried different things. I wanted to have the eyes of the child. It didn't work. So finally I asked Jules, and he said I had one. So he sent a picture and I thought that's exactly what the good cover is.
Since I'm being forced to speak. Let me just begin by saying there are two main rivals that can go there. There's an intra-gang violence and there's inter-gang violence. In consideration of the intra-gang violence, we tend to see that there's usually social turmoil that occurs within the gang system immediately after severance of a leader or the loss of important persons as a part of that structure. Recently we've seen, well, historically, this is the first time I've ever seen so many gang leaders in such a short time being excluded. Are you hearing me? I'm saying that this is the first time I've ever seen so many gang leaders and persons at the upper part of the hierarchy being excluded. And because of that, there tends to be a significant void that is left within the gangs and the ecosystem of the gangs.
And that has led to quite a bit of intra-gang violence where persons who know each other are becoming enemies essentially because they are competing rivalry towards the move up in the hierarchical structure. Now the inter-gang violence part, there is a natural flow of inter-gang violence based on turfism, but then there's also a contributory part where the state intervention can also contribute to those things. Now you'll see that in many countries where they have gang truces, there is a significant spike of violence shortly after once the truce falls apart. For example, in El Salvador, in 2012, there was a gang truce that saw a significant decrease in the level of gang violence. But by 2014, when that truce fell apart, there was a 57% increase in gang violence, and it is usually based on familiarity. Now, the way how the street culture tends to be, because persons are so tied to the area for safety purposes, you bring them out, reveal something that usually somebody else don't know. A lot of times, you tend to know, especially the persons who have been exposed to the streets, you tend to know persons based on their names or their nicknames. Many times they do not know each other's faces. But what occurs is when the state brings people together, especially at different levels of the hierarchy, right, where you're exposed to the leaders and you're exposed to some of the squats. You're looking at persons who are confident that are now aware of each other. So it's easier to pick off people. So now you're seeing that they're becoming a bit more strategic and a lot more informed because we constantly have these meetings with gang members that lacks certain structure to the meetings. So in other words, you come out as a group, bring the guys in together. Every time an incident happens, you bring them together. But you lack the type of relevant structure to ensure that there isn't a spillover after your intervention occurs. And that is what is happening based on my observation a lot of things right now. There's an ad hoc approach to the interventions. You bring the guys over, and you usually see the publicized television newscasts that there are certain interventions occurring, bringing various gang members together. But you have a lot of young persons who are observing these things, and the older ones have no idea who these young shooters are. They have no idea who these young shooters are. So the state has to be cautious as to how it is contributing to the level of the increase in gang violence, as well as there are the natural flow of competition within a gang.
All right, I just want to point out also that gangs begin with inter-gang violence before they mature and move to intra-gang violence. So the more you're seeing intra-gang violence, it's an indication also that your gangs are maturing and need to change leadership. Okay? Now, the other thing is, gangs mature, the maturity is indicated by economics, because gangs are also businesses. A lot of people don't think of gangs in this way, but especially when gangs become connected to oceanic or transoceanic
oceanic groups, like gangs in Jamaica are connected to gangs abroad, and gangs in Belize are connected to gangs in California and so forth. Once economics begin to frame, then quite often, like in any business, you need to remove the leader. And the removal of the leader requires a split of the gang, the formation of a new leader, and then the reformation of the gang. So it means, one of the things, in fact, when I started hearing that we're having so much intra-gang violence, I have to say to a friend of mine who called me about it, to say, boy, you know, material like Jamaica, no. And he said, boy, that we realize. So there are lots of stuff, and I'm happy that somebody brought it up, because guess what? When you see these things, they must mean something to you. It should be a sign that says, look, we have to hasten our steps in beginning to put up this mission. Yeah?
I think that was a critical question and a very good observation, because just yesterday, in just anecdotes, one of the piece of information that we actually picked up is that when they get together, we know that a lot of our executives are gone for the gang groups. And so now they are invited to the table, but the men that come to the table is to observe the newcomers, who are the upcoming ones, who are the new faces. We actually literally pick that up from internal. Just an example.
It's another purpose. They're finding value.
Another point too is concerning identity. If you're going, I think in this state, when I say state, I really do mean that the police, when the parliamentarians are involved in some of these interventions, and any other social person from the social sector that is involved, it must be important that there is little need to constantly appease the general public. There is little need to appease the general public in that regard. The general public must be fully aware that you are intervening in the matter and that you are doing something. But the constant and persistent advertising of these interventions are counterintuitive. So you find you find that the media houses are always present, and it is not accidental. They are called by the police because people want to say that they're doing something. You find that social media is becoming more a tool to expose the identity of young men from certain communities, and there is a lack of tracking that is being done by these very interventions to identify whether or not their intervention contributed to some degree of violence. You will realize as well that many of these young men whose faces are exposed during these walking to IT events and to different areas, or to whatever venue that was used, you're going to find that a lot of these young men are dying. Already there. So the onus is on the general public now, because of the new information that is coming out from persons who may know otherwise, that we start to show to the interventionists that people are falling because of some of the strategies that they're employing. So people, even if you're going to call them to the table, there are many other means, including covering face coverings and other methods that can be utilized. But that must be at the forefront of the intervention. The realization that the identity of these persons are important to their enemies, and that you cannot guarantee at any time the safety. You cannot guarantee their safety. And one more thing I wanted to say. I learned from Dr. Gayle quite a while ago that you cannot ask somebody to put down a gun. You cannot ask somebody to put down a gun. What you can do is improve the circumstances and the conditions of an individual so that the need for a weapon is no longer there. But to ask somebody whether or not it is from a pastoral approach, or a religious approach, or from your good heart, asking somebody to put down a gun without the being able to guarantee their safety results in the death of many of these leaders and a lot of these guys. We could list out the names of many of these persons who we believe became productive individuals but lost their lives because they've stepped out of the ecosystem that has always protected them. Right? If we're not prepared to do the relevant intervention and the relevant investment, whether I'll be the employment, safety, increase safety in the communities, or to reduce poverty, do not ask any youth to put down his gun. The reality of it is that the ecosystem, well, you have to start off by recognizing that there is a need for a social ecosystem. If indeed the social ecosystem has benefited them for a longer life, work along those confines of understanding that somebody stepping out of it while you can go home to your house after 5 o'clock after your quote-unquote intervention will cause his death, then step away. But if you're the person, the interventionist that realizes that the ecosystem is important to him, and because of that, the relevant frames, the political and social and economic frames are going to be placed around that individual to ensure his safety and future productivity, then we step forward.
I want to say that we have some hope though, because we recognize that there are people out there who genuinely want to do intervention and want to work. But to work with oppressed people requires knowledge and training. And we are about to organize a training very soon for those of us who work in the communities.
All right, I'm going to use this medium to ask all media people to begin the responsible practice of blurring the faces of young men who you work with. It's not so hard. In fact, it's a requirement in general media work. All right? I'm a little amazed at when I pick up something on Belize, the face, so I was just reading something about Jamaica, Barbados, wherever else, and there's no face, it's just blur. And then pick up Belize, the person's there like, ta-da, I mean, snap, selfie, it's too romantic. So that's one of the areas that we have to begin. And especially our practitioners have to begin to practice this kind of informed responsibility. We're all responsible, but the responsibility must be informed. Thank you.
With that, we come to the end of tonight's session. Just a bit of information if you still want to know some more. On Thursday on Channel 7, right after the news, there will be the airing of a 1.5 hour pre-recorded show or so. Dr. Gayle recorded that with the news director of 7 News, basically on the same day that he arrived in country, and it will re-air sometime over the weekend, but I imagine that 7 News will share that information on their recap. And Dr. Gayle, for those of you who have purchased books here today, you can get his autograph if you wish to have it. And then, of course, to the back we have, or there is the selling of the books still. Yeah, Nelma is here as well.